30 years, Daryl has befriended more than 200 white supremacists and members of the KKK to ask a simple question: how can you hate me when you don't even know me? Daryl's first book, Clandestine Relationships, A Black Man's Odyssey in the Ku Klux Klan, documents his experience and his pursuit to understand hate and extremism. Daryl's work on racial healing was the focus of a 2016 award-winning documentary, Accidental Courtesy, Daryl Davis, Race in America. Highlighted in that documentary is his personal experience with racism and his work creating these conversations that ignite change. He believes that the tools we need to combat ignorance and racism and hatred are education, understanding, and communication. He has a TED Talk with over 11 million views, and today he's going to talk to you about his important work. I am going to go off camera so that you can fully enjoy Daryl for the next 25 minutes. I'll be monitoring any questions that you all have in the Q&A or in the chat, and when we come back on, we will answer those. So with that set up, Daryl, I'd love to welcome you and thank you so much for being here to share with everyone your important work.
Thank you, Gail. It's my pleasure to be here. I'm going to call you Cousin Gail because we have the same last name. Indeed. Well, let me give you all a brief summary of my background. First of all, I'm age 63, and I was born in Chicago, Illinois. My parents are from Virginia, and I had the benefit of travel at an early age and still travel now as an adult. At an early age, I was a child of parents in the U.S. Foreign Service. My dad was State Department. So I grew up as an American Embassy brat, traveling all over the world with my mother and father, starting at the age of 3 in 1961. And when you combine my childhood travels through my formative years, combined with my adulthood travels now today, as Gail mentioned, as a professional musician, also playing around the world, I have been now in a total of 57 different countries on 6 continents. And I have performed in 49 of our 50 states. I'll do the 50th one in November, this November. So all that is to say that I have been exposed to a multitude of cultures, skin colors, ethnicities, practices, religions, beliefs, ideologies. All of that has helped shape who I've become and my perception and perspectives on humanity. I can tell you something. No matter how far I go from this country, my own country, the United States, whether it's right next door to Canada or right next door to Mexico or halfway around the world, no matter how different people I encounter may be from me, they don't look like me. They don't speak my language. Perhaps they don't worship as I do or practice the same belief system or culture that I have. I always conclude one thing when I return home. Of all the people that I encounter, we all are human beings. And what I have found is this: we all want these same 5 core values in our lives. We all want to be loved. We all want to be respected. We all want to be heard. We want to be treated fairly. And we want the same things for our family as anybody else wants for their family. And if we learn to employ these 5 core values, or any of those 5 core values, whenever we may find ourselves in a culture or a society in which we are unfamiliar, I will guarantee you that your navigation will be much more smooth and much more positive. Now, to the thing with the white supremacists that Gail was speaking of. When I was overseas, my first exposure to school was kindergarten. I did kindergarten, 1st grade, 3rd grade, 5th grade, and 7th grade, because you get assigned to a country for 2 years, and then you return back home here to the States for a little while, and then you're back overseas again to another country for 2 years. So when I was going to school overseas in the 1960s, My classrooms were filled with kids from all over the world. My desk mates were from Nigeria, Italy, France, Sweden, Denmark, Australia, Japan, Russia. Anybody who had an embassy in those countries, all of their children went to the same school. If you opened the door to my classroom and stuck your head in, you would say, this looks like a United Nations of little kids, because that's exactly what it was. Now, that was my first exposure to school. So therefore, that was my baseline. That was my norm. Today, we would call that scenario multicultural. But the term multicultural didn't even exist back then. To me, it was just the norm. But every time I come back home here, after my dad's 2-year assignment, I would either be in all Black schools or Black and white schools, meaning the still segregated or the newly integrated. And there was not the amount of diversity in my classrooms that I had overseas or that we have today. Today, you walk into a classroom, you see the same thing I saw back in the 60s. But in the 1960s, that scenario was not present in our country. So literally, when I was overseas, I was living about 10 to 12 years ahead of my time, because that multicultural environment in the classroom had yet to come to this country. So I didn't understand separation and segregation and things like that. One day, when I was back home here, I was in a mixed school in which there were only 2 Black kids in the entire school, myself at age 10 in 4th grade and a little Black girl in 2nd grade. So consequently, all of my friends were 4th and 5th graders, and they were white. Several of my male friends invited me to join the Cub Scouts. They were members. This was 1968. I joined the Cub Scouts and we had a parade. I was the only Black participant. People were smiling, waving, and cheering us until we got to a certain point when suddenly I was getting hit with bottles, rocks, and soda pop cans and just small debris from the street by a few of the white spectators mixed in with a larger crowd. I didn't understand it because I'd never experienced this before. And my troop leaders all came over and huddled over me with their own bodies and escorted me out of the danger. And I kept asking them, what did I do? I didn't do anything, but then why are they doing this? You know, I thought they didn't like the Scouts until I saw I was the only one being targeted. And I didn't realize that, you know, what the story was on it, because nobody else was getting this special covering treatment. And all they would do is shush me and rush me along and not answer my question. When I got home, my mom and dad were putting Band-Aids on me and getting me cleaned up and asking me, how did you fall down and get all scraped up? I told them what had happened. And for the first time in my life, at the age of 10, my mother and father explained to me what racism was. Believe it or not, I did not believe my parents. My 10-year-old brain could not process the idea that someone who didn't even know me would want to hurt me for no other reason than the color of my skin. It made no sense. And the people over here on the sidewalk doing this, those few people, did not look any different to me than my friends at school or my friends overseas, whether they were my fellow Americans from the embassy or my little French or Danish or Norwegian or Australian friends. So color had nothing to do with it. My parents were lying to me. I don't know why they were lying, but they were lying because that just makes no sense. Well, about a month and a half later, or almost 2 months later, that same year, on April the 4th, 1968, Martin Luther King was assassinated. And every major city in this country burned to the ground in the name of this new word I had learned called racism. So now I understood this phenomenon did exist, but I didn't know why. And I asked people, I bought books, I never got a satisfactory answer. I formed a question in my mind at that age, which was, how can you hate me when you don't even know me? And now for the next 53 years, I've been looking for the answer to that question. So, who better to ask that question of than someone who would go so far as to join an organization whose whole premise is practicing hating people who don't look like them and who don't believe as they believe. So I began seeking out members of the KKK and later other white supremacists, neo-Nazis, alt-right, Proud Boys, etc. And what I did was I wanted to write a book on them. And I never dreamed 37 years later, I would still be doing this work. But I've stumbled onto a solution that helps eradicate and reduce racism in our country by employing those 5 values that I learned through all my travels. Now, I want to show you something here just to give you an idea of how far all this stuff can take you. This is about 28 years ago in Maryland. I'm a little thinner, have a little more hair on my head. This is at a KK rally. Towards the end of the rally, you can see the fire on the cross in the background is going out. And this one here is about five years ago in the state of Missouri. Again, towards the end of a rally. Now, there were more Klan people there at this particular rally, but they were off to the side at a condiment table or something. Now, what do I do at these KKK rallies? I engage in conversation. I'm a firm believer that a missed opportunity for dialogue is a missed opportunity for conflict resolution. And I employ those 5 core values that I talked about. People want to be loved. They want to be respected. They want to be heard. They want to be treated fairly. They want the same thing for their family as we want for our families. So now understand something when I say respect. I do not respect what they have to say about people who look like me, or people who are Jewish, or people who are gay, or people who are whatever they don't believe in. I don't respect their views, but I respect their right to air their views. Because if I want somebody to listen to me, I in turn have to listen to them. That's what we're talking about. People want to be heard. People want to be treated fairly. So if you listen to me, I listen to you, kind of thing. That's a fair exchange. And let me show you how that works. One's perception is one's reality. You cannot change somebody's reality, even if it's not real, because it's real to them. People only know what they know. And the more you attack their reality, something that they believe in, something that they feel is real, the more you're going to fail. So what you do is you offer them an alternate perspective, offer them a better perception. And if they resonate with your perception, they will change their own reality, because one's perception is one's reality. Let me just give you a quick example of something. Let's say you take a 7 or 8 year old boy, your son perhaps. He goes to a magic show without you, with his friends and their parents or his class. And he comes home and tells you that he saw a man select a woman out of the audience, bring her up on stage, and put her in a box, and had her stick her feet out one end of the box and her head out the other. And then this magician, took a chainsaw and cut that box right down through the middle. And your son is telling you that this man cut that woman in half. To him, it is real. And you cannot tell him, no, son, that's an illusion. No, it wasn't. I was there. I saw it with my own eyes. He cut the woman in half. The saw went right through the box. There is no changing this boy's mind. He knows what he saw. And then to even bolster his confidence that this man cut this woman in half, the magician moved the half of the box with the feet sticking out of it over to stage right, and the half of the head over to stage left. And then he went over there and talked to the head, and the head spoke back. And then your son tells you he brought the 2 halves back together and opened the box, and the woman popped out in full form, no blood, all back together. that this man performed magic. And if you try to tell him, well, that's not how it worked, he's going to dispute you. So what you do is you offer him, rather than change his reality, you offer him a better perspective, offer him a better perception, and see if he resonates with it. You might say, well, you say this magician picked this lady out of the audience, out of all these women who volunteered to come up on stage and participate in this trick. Could it be that perhaps this woman was a plant in the audience? Perhaps she works for the magician. He put her in that seat and chose her because she knows the trick, and she travels with him wherever he performs. And when she climbs into the box, there's already a pair of mannequin dummy legs laying on the floor of the box that are wearing the same stockings and shoes as she has on. And she takes them and sticks them out the hole at the end of the box and then brings her own legs up under her chest. So her whole body is on that side of the box. So when he cuts the box in half, he hasn't even touched her. And then he separates the two boxes, and as you said, he walks over and speaks to her head, but you can't see her whole body over there. Then he brings them back together, opens the box, and out she pops. So then the 7 or 8-year-old says, I guess that makes sense. Yeah, I guess that's the only way that could work. So you've offered him a better perception rather than attacking his reality. And because one's perception is one's reality, your son changes his own reality into seeing the truth. And that is what I'm talking about. You know, we spend too much time arguing with people, trying to change their realities. We spend more time talking about the other person, talking at the other person, and talking past the other person. Why don't we spend some time talking with the other person and offering our perceptions rather than attacking their realities? So let me show you, like I said, what do I do at these Klan rallies? I just showed you. I talk with people. Now, let me just show you this one here. This is a Klan rally, and I want you to listen to what the Imperial Wizard, former Grand Dragon, has to say about me at this Klan rally.
Davis is one of the few African Americans you will ever find attending a KKK rally. More than attending, he is welcome.
I got more respect for that black man than I do you white niggers out there.
His friendship transcended the color barrier. Listen to Kelly at a Klan rally.
I'm a color out man to hell back because I believe in what he stands for and he believes in what I stand for. A lot of times we don't agree with everything, but at least he respects me to sit down and listen to me. And I'll respect him to sit down and listen to him.
The strange relationship of a KKK wizard and his black buddy. In Washington, I'm Carl Rochelle, CNN Sunday Morning.
Okay, now you heard that Klan leader say that he respected me. What's that all about? I'm a black guy. He's the head of the Klan. What he said was, we may not agree on everything, but at least he respects me to sit down and listen to me, and I respect him to sit down and listen to him. Those were his words. If you don't take anything else home with you today, take those words home. If you have an adversary, it doesn't have to be about race. It could be like, in fact, let's take race off the table for a second. There are tons of hot topics out here. Abortion, nuclear weapons, the presidential election, global warming, the war in the Middle East, and right now, the troop withdrawal. Okay, these are all hot topics. So you're on one side, somebody's on the other side. Let your adversary have a platform. Allow him or her to share their views, and you listen to them. Even if you don't agree, that's their reality. Allow them to express their views. And in exchange, they will allow you to express your views. Don't attack their reality, offer them a different perception. The Klan leader named 3 of those core values in that one sentence. He said he respected me. That's one of those core values. He said I listened to him. I allowed him to be heard. He said he listened to me. So that's a fair exchange. I listened to him, and then he said he sat down and listened to me. There are 3 values right there. As a result of my applying those core values, not overnight, but over time, that Klan leader thought about those things. And he resonated with that perception. And guess what? He left the Ku Klux Klan. He quit the Ku Klux Klan because he no longer believes in what it stood for. And when he left the Klan, he gave me that very same robe and hood that he was wearing that you saw in that video clip. And of course, this is what is called the hood right here. That never could have happened without dialogue. Now understand something. I go to the extremes. I'm a Black guy going to a Klan rally. So how hard would it be for you to sit down at your family dinner table and listen to your siblings or listen to your coworkers who may have voted for somebody different than who you voted for, and have a conversation without breaking up the family or breaking up a friendship? All you have to do is listen. Spend more time talking with people, not about them, not at them, and not past them. A missed opportunity for dialogue is a missed opportunity for conflict resolution. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much, Daryl. I absolutely love that simple advice that all you have to do is offer someone a different perspective.
Absolutely.
My first question is, were you scared the first time that you decided to show up at a rally?
No, actually, I was not. And I'll be honest with you, for me, it was more curiosity than courage. And I think due to the fact that I had been exposed to all kinds of different cultures all around the world, I just considered white supremacy to be just another culture.
Okay.
That's how I viewed it.
Okay. Someone on the chat, one of our clients, Amy, up in Oklahoma, is super curious what the 50th state is that you're going to play it in November, because you started off by saying you've been to 49. What's that last state?
Alaska. I've never been to Alaska, and I'm going to play there in November in Ketchikan, Alaska.
Awesome.
I'm excited.
Okay. Has anybody, another question that just came in, has anybody ever attacked you physically or mistreated you at a rally?
Yes, I've been attacked, and unfortunately, I've had to engage in violence, and I've had to hurt some people, put them in the hospital, beat them on the street, and then take them to court and beat them there legally as well. Fortunately, those occurrences have been few and far between. But you are going into a situation where people just don't like you. They don't feel they have to have a reason. The color of your skin or your religion or your persuasion or whatever it is enough for them to act upon it. But even some people like that, that I've dealt with, some of them have even come back to me later and apologized.
Yeah, I love how it transcends, like you said, it's not a race thing. It's anybody that you have an adversarial relationship with.
Exactly, Gail. And let me say this, one of my very favorite quotes, and I would advise anybody to look it up, is called the Travel Quote by Mark Twain, alias Samuel Clemens, right?
Yeah.
Mark Twain said, "Travel is fatal to prejudice, bigotry, and narrow-mindedness, and many of our people need it sorely on these accounts. Broad, wholesome, charitable views of men and things cannot be acquired by vegetating in one little corner of the earth all one's lifetime." And that is so true. I am so grateful that my parents showed me the world at such a young age, and now I can go back and see it. And even, if we don't go across the Atlantic Ocean, because, most, traveling does not make me a better human being than somebody else. No, not at all. I'm not saying that at all. What it does is it has given me a broader perspective, and it's given me more tools that I can enhance my life with and try to enhance the lives of others. And that's what I'm all about. Because, most Americans don't travel. Europeans, they travel all the time. They're always going somewhere. But most Americans don't even have passports. But, you don't have to go across the Atlantic Ocean or the Pacific Ocean like I've done. With the technology we have today, you can take a virtual tour of the Leaning Tower of Pisa, or the Eiffel Tower, or the pyramids, or the Berlin Wall. When I was a kid and I'd come home from overseas, and I would be in my, I appreciated those things that my parents took me to, all over the world, but I just assumed every little kid did it because, that's all you know. But when I came home every 2 years, I would be sitting in world history class in my middle school, what we call junior high or elementary school back then. And we would be studying the Berlin Wall, the Eiffel Tower, the Mona Lisa, the Sphinx, the pyramids, things like that. I realized I have been to those things. I have touched the Berlin Wall. I stood 5 feet from the Mona Lisa in the Louvre Museum. I've been up in the Eiffel Tower. I've been inside the pyramids. I saw King Tut in his tomb long before he ever went on tour with the Smithsonian museums, And I realized that a lot of my classmates, the closest they would ever get to those things were the pictures in the textbooks. But that was back in the 60s. And now we can virtually go and visit many of these things. We have this at our fingertips, right within our own house, on our cell phones, on our laptops. Take advantage of this technology. Folks, we are living in space age times. Why are we still thinking with Stone Age minds?
I like that. You and I were talking before we got started. I mentioned that one of my friends is on from a juvenile detention center in Oklahoma. And I'm struck by the fact that we were talking about that. And you just mentioned how fortunate you were to have great parenting and have these life experiences. What does your wisdom tell people who are working with troubled youth who maybe weren't so lucky to have traveled and seen the world, or maybe they didn't have good parenting? Is there a way to help them bridge some of the hatred that they've grown up? I'm sure the Klan's the same way, just it goes from one generation to the next. And I'm sure that's at the source of a lot of behavior that gets kids in trouble.
Absolutely. And never consider a kid to be a throwaway. Never. Okay. I sit on the board of directors for a similar facility. And so I see I've been sitting on this board for almost, 28 years. And so I see a lot of that, and I see a lot of success stories come out of there. And sometimes, all it takes is a kind word or spending time talking with some of these people, finding out, what was their life like, and listening to them and hearing them and sharing some things, about your life. Take them around, show them something. It just may be one word or one sentence or one sitting with them that will have an impact on them for the rest of their lives. And then they can break that cycle and then pass it on to somebody else. That's the beauty of many of these places. Never consider a child to be a throwaway. And in fact, that word should be out of our vocabulary.
Okay. Another question from someone is, how do you address more subtle discrimination? Because obviously someone who would show up at a KKK rally, there's nothing subtle about that. But all of us encounter more subtle forms of racism, discrimination. What do you have to say about that?
I say stop walking on eggshells. Too many of us are afraid of being politically incorrect. I hate political correctness, but that's just me, okay? Because it shuts people down. People are afraid, they might say something that might be offensive. And then, these subtle forms of racism that we hear, sometimes the people are not even racist, or they're not aware that what they're saying is offensive, But we have to be honest and come out. Don't attack the person, but explain to the person why that term maybe should not be used, and then explain what it means to you, or what it might mean to somebody else. But one key element that I always encourage people to do is this: don't just stand up for yourself and people who look like you or who worship like you. If you hear somebody making a comment about some other group of people of which you're not a member, stand up for that group, whether they're present or not. Say, hey, wait a minute, hold on. Well, please explain to me why are you using this term? Do you realize, it could mean this, that, or the other to them? So, we have to be careful. Like, when somebody says, I remember when I was a kid, I don't hear it so much today as an adult, but someone would say, what have you been up to lately? And someone says, none of your cotton picking business. Well, that cotton picking, that's offensive, because where does it come from? It comes from the plantation. That's what we did on the plantations, right? And when somebody says, well, I want to make America great again. Well, we all want to make America great, but when was again? We have to think about some of these things and how they resonate with somebody else. So rather than attack the subtle perpetrator, educate the perpetrator. Because listen, ignorance leads to fear. We fear those things of which we're ignorant, those things we don't understand. I'm not using the term ignorance as a negative. It means unaware. So ignorance, if not addressed, leads to fear. We fear the things we don't understand. If we don't address the fear in turn will escalate to hatred because we hate the things that frighten us. If we don't address the hatred, that escalates into anger and becomes destruction because we get angry and want to destroy the things that we hate. Why? Because they frighten us. But guess what? At the end of the day, they may have been harmless and we were simply ignorant. But here's how we should address it. We spend a lot of time addressing the destruction, addressing the hatred, addressing the fear. Forget about those things. Those are byproducts. Those are symptoms of the nucleus, symptoms of the root cause. The root cause is ignorance. And the good thing is there is a cure for ignorance. That cure is called education and exposure. And if we focus our efforts, our energy, our finances, our time on providing education and exposure to the ignorance, we can eradicate the ignorance. With no ignorance, there's nothing to fear. With no fear, there's nothing to hate. With no hate, there's nothing to get angry about and destroy. So we should focus on the nucleus. It's like putting a Band-Aid on cancer when you got to drill down to the bone.
Amazing. Way to go, cousin. I love that. I love
it too.
Well, there's only one question we didn't answer, and it's from one of our clients. And the question is, how did you come up with the idea to attend a KKK rally?
Well, you're going to find this, I could write a book. I could write tons of books on the KKK because without ever going to a rally, of course. Just like, you can write a book on Christopher Columbus. You never met him. You were never in his presence. He's long gone. But there's enough information out there that you can go to the library and research it and then write your own book. But I'm a firm believer, if something exists, then try to get it from the horse's mouth. And furthermore, no book had ever been written on the Ku Klux Klan by a Black author. Mine was the first. So I wanted to get that perspective, that experience, rather than sit around and judge them without knowing them like they judge me without knowing me. So that's where the idea came from.
Perfect. Daryl, you're great. I love your voice and I love your perspective. And I think you've given us a lot to think about. Someone just said, love the discussion. Thank you so much. So
thank you.
I really appreciate it. For those of you that are out there listening, to Daryl's point, this whole thing gets resolved with education. So if you feel that bringing him in and him sharing his perspective would educate your audience, please give us a call at GDA Speakers. We'd love to make that happen, whether it's virtually or in person. And that's what we're here for. And it's an important topic that I know everyone is interested in. And for those of you that join us with GDA Live, we're taking a little break in September and we will be back in October and we'll publicize that. So thank you again, Daryl. It was really powerful. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And don't forget to invite me to the family